our next speaker is Marc Villacampa. He is one of the iOS developers for RevenueCat, doing the SDK. If you're an indie developer or if you've been around our sponsor booth, you've probably seen them. Make sure to pass by their sponsor booth. I think they have some prizes going on, so you should check that out. But he's gonna talk on how to build a great paywall. So if you're interested in how to make money out of your indie projects, you should be paying attention. Give a big round of applause to Marc.
Thank you. Yeah, hello everybody. I'm so thrilled to be back at Tennis Spain this year. I think the last time I was here was 2017, and I had such a great time. And I'm so happy to be back here and meet old and new friends. Yeah, my name is Marc Villacampa. I work for a company called RevenueCat as an SDK developer, and our mission is to help developers make more money by simplifying in-app purchases. But today I've come to talk about paywalls, and specifically how to build great ones. But first of all, what's a paywall? What are we talking about? So how many of you have implemented a paywall in your app? Raise your hand. Okay, a quite significant portion of you. So a paywall is a sales pitch for a product. It is not the product itself. It is not the benefit being delivered to your customers. It is not a value being delivered to users. It is a sales pitch for your product, right? Paywalls are a way to monetize your content or your features by asking users to pay you money. But because of that, it has a very specific goal, a very singular goal, a very singular mission, which is the goal of a paywall is very specifically to convert users to customers, to convert users to subscribers. It is a conversion machine. That's why it exists. And to be an effective sales pitch for your product, so you can convert those users into paying customers. But why is it important to have a good paywall, right? Like every app that offers subscriptions has a paywall, because otherwise I don't know how they monetize. But however, having a great paywall for your app is important so that you might convert more users to subscribers than you would otherwise, so that you can increment the conversion rate. Because you can spend weeks or months improving your product, but if you don't have a great paywall optimized for your app, all those new users that will come and try your product will never actually convert into paying customers. And at the end of the day, growing your app means taking users through a funnel, and the paywall is like a key component, key piece of that funnel. And first thing I really want to get out of the way is that when it comes to designing paywalls for mobile apps, it's important to remember that paywalls are not one-size-fits-all. Paywalls come in all shapes and sizes. Every app has its unique features, its target audience, its pricing strategy, and therefore it's crucial to tailor the paywall design to the specific needs of your app. And I know it would be much easier if I told you, like, yep, this is the best paywall in the world, go and use it and you'll earn so much money, but it's much complicated than that. But maybe we can talk about best practices, right? Surely there is some common set of rules that works for every paywall, like a set of prices or the text of the purchase button or some naming conventions, some colors, whatever, right? Like surely there's some of that. Well, sadly, there is not a single best practice that works for every app again, because everything is highly dependent on your product, on your customers, on your industry, and even on the time when you're testing something in your paywall, or things like what's the context of your user in the moment that they see your paywall, or when are you showing your paywall, or what are your customers' needs in that moment. So that means that potentially there could be even more than one paywall that works for your app under different circumstances, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. But maybe instead of best practices, what we can call them is just things to try, right? So what we can do is explore some of the more common variables that you can tweak in your paywall to experiment and optimize, and find out what works best for your app and your customers. So these are some of the main variables for a paywall. And we're going to see some of the best options we can try for each one. First, there is timing and placement of the paywall, meaning when and where to show it. Then there's design and copy of the paywall, meaning its structure and layout and the text that is displayed in the paywall. And finally, pricing and offers of the packages that are being presented to users. And finally, we'll talk a little bit about experimentation, because there's plenty of examples of paywalls that do not explicitly follow some of these best practices, but still work for some apps in some circumstances. So we'll start with the first one, timing and placement. So timing controls when your paywall is shown, or even if it's shown at all. And placement controls where your paywall is shown, right? So if the whole functionality of your app is gated behind a subscription, it's likely that you will show your paywall early on after launch, and that is called a hard paywall because it gates the whole content of your app. However, if your app has a freemium model, maybe you will wait until the user has finished onboarding, or when the user tries to use a feature that is only available to paid subscribers, and then you will show the paywall. And that's called a soft paywall, because it only gates some parts of your app. A soft paywall can be shown in response to an indirect intent, meaning like repetitive use of the app, or use of certain core actions of the app, or even a user that shows high engagement versus one that shows less engagement. Or a paywall can also be shown in response to a direct intent, right? Like interacting with a specific premium feature that is only available for paid users. There's another type of paywall that you can saw. It's called opportunistic paywall. That only offers like special offers, such as a limited time discount, or a seasonal promotion, or maybe a referral bonus, right? But always make sure that your paywall is accessible. Make sure that there is an easy way for a user to get to the paywall if they actually really want to purchase, right? This can be even in a main screen of the app, or maybe in the settings screen, but always make sure that a user who wants to pay you money is able to, right? Yeah, I know some things are very obvious, but actually they're not. Finally, make sure that you measure what percentage of your users actually see your paywall, because depending on your app, you'd probably be surprised how many users do not actually see your paywall, right? And one thing is certain is that a user who does not see your paywall is, again, not going to give you money. Next one, the copy of your app. The copy or copywriting is the text that is contained in your paywall, right? In that text, you should probably describe the benefits for your customers if they will purchase your product, right? Do not just list the features that they will unlock, because what customers are really interested in are the benefits, the tangible benefits that they will get when they purchase, and not just a list of features that your product has to offer. Another thing you could use is proof points, like if you have studies or papers that demonstrate what your product does, you should show that. Or you can also use social proof, like customer testimonials or rating reviews, explaining how other users have benefited from their product. Always try to avoid walls of text. If you have multiple benefits that you want to communicate, make sure that you either make a bulleted list of benefits with short sentences, or maybe a horizontal scrolling pager so that it's easy for the customer to discover and read through the benefits without being overwhelmed. Your paywall should also match the voice and tone of your app, depending on your target audience. If your app might use some more serious or scientific language through the text of the app, or Maybe it can be playful and cheerful, but it should match the rest of the app. But always remember to be friendly and respectful, and don't use aggressive or manipulative language to try to make them to subscribe. Also, make sure to be transparent and honest. Don't hide important information such as billing terms or cancellation policy or privacy policy. Use clear labels to indicate the frequency and the amount of billing and the duration and conditions of the trial period or the introductory offer. Finally, in the CTA, or call to action, which is the button that your users will tap to make a purchase, you should probably highlight the opportunity for the customer in taking the action, like try free and subscribe, or continue with 7 days free, or etc. And also make sure to use clear verbs. Using a verb is always better. That makes it easy for the customer to understand what they are getting into, right? Like what they are doing, like subscribe, or continue, or join, or start. Now, let's talk about design. And probably and unintuitively, the single most impactful characteristic of a good design is the spacing and the layout of the elements, so that things are easy to read and to understand. Make sure there is enough space between the elements, and don't try to cram too many elements on the same screen. Try to keep your paywall design, again, consistent with your app's brand and colors and content, but make sure to also personalize it and contextualize it to appeal to different user segments or different user contexts. One common structure that works well for many paywalls consists of 3 sections. The first one lists the benefits for the subscription that the subscription will provide if purchased. The second contains the different packages that a user can choose from. And finally, a call to action button that performs the purchase, right? In the first section, you should highlight the features and the benefits and the offers that of your product, and use bulleted points, and you can also get help from images or videos or icons to showcase what your product does and why is it worth paying for. Regarding the subscription options and the packages, keep them simple and clear. Avoid having too many choices or confusing pricing plans. Use clear and concise labels for your options, and make sure to highlight the most popular or recommended one. Also make sure the discounts and the offers are appropriately highlighted and marked. And finally, make your call to action button clear and purposeful. Use a contrasting color, maybe a large font size or an action verb for your button, and make sure the user knows what they're getting into, what they're paying for if they click it, so that it's easy for them to make an informed decision and analyze the offer. Pricing and offers. There are tons of best practices to keep in mind here, and a lot of them center around this concept called price anchoring. Price anchoring refers to the practice of establishing a price point which customers can refer to when making decisions and comparing to other plans or other products. So, for example, if I set the price of the monthly package, then users can very easily calculate the price for the yearly subscription, right? Just multiply by 12. But then, if I heavily discount the yearly package, users will probably be more inclined to purchase the yearly subscription, right? And sometimes you might just want to offer just one package, but usually, normally, it's better to have 2 or 3 options available, because it gives the user to select the plan that's best for them, and also you get the opportunity to take advantage of this price anchoring that we mentioned. In any case, if you have more than one package, always make sure to pre-select one of them. Consider experimenting which package is pre-selected, because the default option will always influence the perception and the choice. As we all know, in software, defaults matter a lot, and most people are always going to go with the preselected option. Make sure you also include introductory offers, like free trials or discounts, to make it very low risk for a user to say yes and purchase your product. Experiment with offer availability in different packages to make maybe a user more prone to subscribing to longer subscriptions. And finally, use tags and other visual cues to make it easy to see the benefits of one package versus another, like a discount or availability or limited availability or an offer. But if I had to recommend just one best practice, which in this case would be more of a meta best practice, would be to experiment. Try different things, change variables, see what performs better. Start with the best practices that we've mentioned today, like be intentional about the packages that you offer, the call to action that you choose, and the benefits that you pitch. Don't just start with a random paywall, right? Like, take some of the best practices that we've seen and then start from there. But then you should start experimenting. You should start experimenting with individual high-impact elements. One way to do it is to first write down a thesis about why you think something is going to perform better, and then write your findings after you test it. And that will refine your understanding of what works and what doesn't work for your product and your app and your customers. And that refined understanding of how your app performs can help you inform the next test, right? Even if your app is not that big, even if you can only experiment with a small number of subscribers, which would mean that your experiment is not statistically significant, I think it's still valuable to experiment, even as a safety measure, to make sure that your change has not harmed the business by a large percentage, and also just to get in the business of experimenting. And after you do that, just rinse and repeat forever, and keep experimenting, because I don't think there's ever an end to experimentation. And if I had to choose a best practice, definitely the best practice is experimentation. But you may be wondering, just, Mark, how all these best practices you've told us about, like, they're great, and I'm sure they work great for my app, and they will help me make more money, but I just don't have the time or the skills to implement them. Is there a way I can get up and running quickly with a good paywall? And you're very lucky. Because with iOS 17, Apple introduced StoreKit views, which are a set of Swift UI views that help you easily get up and running, get a usable paywall, and combined with the StoreKit 2, you can set up and manage subscription just with these native tools. And they provide a good baseline for what a good paywall should be. They help you get up and running quickly, but there are some limitations, right? Like, there are some drawbacks. Like, the customization, the UI customization options are limited, and they lack several features that we've talked about, like remote configuration or experimentation. And also, they're only available in iOS 17, which I don't think is even out now. But at RevenueCat, we've been working on an alternative that we just released as beta called RevenueCat Paywalls. And what's RevenueCat Paywalls? Well, RevenueCat Paywalls are natively rendered, remotely configurable paywall UI framework. What does it mean? Okay, so it's natively rendered, meaning it uses Swift UI under the hood to render the paywalls. It is remotely configurable, meaning it can be changed without releasing a new version of your app, and also can be instrumented to perform experiments and A/B tests. And why have we built this feature? Well, 3 reasons, right? First, we want to make launching a paywall really easy. We want to take you from 0 to 1 faster, and instead of having to manually code your paywall, instead of working on your app and your differentiated features, we do it for you, and we take you from 0 to 1. Next, to provide a better baseline, we take you from 1 to 1.2 by providing these out-of-the-box paywall templates that follow these best practices that we've seen, all these common cases, and also can be matched to configure your branding. And finally, to offer dynamic optimization. And this can potentially take you from 1.2 to infinity, right? You can test all the configurable variables for your paywall and try different paywalls until you find the paywall that converts best for your app. If you want to see some of the examples of paywalls built with RevenueCat paywalls, these are our templates, and you've already seen them because they are the paywalls that you've seen in the presentation, and they were all built using RevenueCat paywalls. If you want to know a little bit more, you can head out to revenuecat.com/features/paywalls. And yeah, feel free to come by our booth and get some swag and talk in-app purchases. Thank you.
Yes.